There was an evil version of myself that would kind of come out at random moments. He would commit the crimes that I would have to solve as the detective. I'd be like solving murders that I'm committing myself.
The courtroom was small. The orange jail uniform was bright. The handcuffs around his wrists were real. David Anthony Burke, 21 years old, sat in the Los Angeles Superior Court on Thursday, April 23, 2036, exactly 1 year to the day that prosecutors say he killed a 14-year-old girl named Celeste Rivas Hernandez inside his Hollywood Hills home. He said 2 words the entire hearing. "Yes, ma'am." That was it. That was all. While the prosecutor sitting across from him told the judge that his iCloud account contained a significant amount of child pornography, while his own attorney placed a hand on his shoulder, while the judge warned him not to miss the morning jail bus for his next court date. 2 words. "Yes, ma'am." Today we are going inside every courtroom moment in this case. Every word the prosecutor said, every word the defense said, every piece of evidence that has been disclosed, every legal strategy being played out in real time, and exactly what happens next, including the preliminary hearing beginning May 1st that will determine whether David Burke stands trial for murder and faces the death penalty. This is not a summary. This is the full picture. From the beginning to where this case stands today, told with every confirmed detail that is part of the public record. Make sure you subscribe and hit the bell, because this case is moving fast and every development matters. Before this becomes a story about courtrooms and evidence and legal strategy, it has to be a story about a girl. Celeste Abigail Rivas Hernandez was born on September 7, 2010 in Lake Elsinore, California. Her parents, Jesus Rivas and Mercedes Martinez, immigrated to the United States from El Salvador. They built a life in the Inland Empire. They raised their daughter there. Celeste liked Hello Kitty. A missing person poster, one of 3 that would be filed for her in the final year of her life, noticed she was last seen wearing Hello Kitty slippers. She loved to sing and dance. Friday nights were movie nights with her family. She told her parents she loved them. She was 13 years old when prosecutors say David Burke first began sexually abusing her, 13, a child, in the 9th grade. In January 2024, she appeared on a Twitch live stream with Burke, the 2 of them talking and laughing into the early morning hours, visible to anyone watching online.
Yo, wait.
Oh, look it. Answer that one. That's so mean if you don't answer
Which
that.
one? What's good, David? Big fan, big fan. Oh, thank you. Mitchell.
I gotta stop with him if you even.
We
We need to delete this.
Maz, can we delete all VODs? And then as soon as the stream ends, delete the stream too?
Before that stream ended, Burke was captured on camera saying something. Delete everything. Those 2 words, said casually, as if they were nothing. They are now among the most significant pieces of evidence in a first-degree murder case. Celeste was reported missing for the first time in April 2024. She last contacted her family in May 2024. Surveillance footage and digital records confirmed she was still alive in September 2024 and again in January 2025. On April 23, 2025, 1 year before her parents watched a man in handcuffs sit silently in a Los Angeles courtroom, she walked into Burke's Hollywood Hills home. She was never heard from again. On what would have been her 15th birthday, September 8, 2025, her decomposed, dismembered remains were found inside the trunk of a Tesla registered to David Burke. Her parents made their first public statement on April 22, 2020. They described their daughter as beautiful and strong.
Celeste was a beautiful, strong girl who loved to sing and dance. Every Friday night was movie night, and we spent wonderful times together. We love her very much, and she always told us that she loved us. We miss her deeply. All we want is justice for Celeste.
They said all they want is justice for Celeste. That is who this case is about. Before the evidence, before the lawyers, before the hearings. A girl who liked Hello Kitty and loved movie Fridays and told her parents she loved them. On April 20th, 2026, 4 days after David Burke's arrest, Los Angeles County District Attorney Nathan Hartman stood before cameras outside the Clara Shortridge Foltz Criminal Justice Center and formally announced the charges.
Today, I am announcing the charges against David Anthony Burke, the musician known as David, spelled D4vd, in connection with the brutal and horrific murder of Celeste, a 14-year-old at that time. These charges include the most serious charges that a DA's office can bring. That is first-degree murder with special circumstances.
He did not speak in legal abstractions. He spoke in plain language that made the prosecution's theory of the case immediately clear to anyone listening. He said, "A parent's nightmare is a situation when your daughter goes out one night and never comes back." Celeste went to Mr. Burke's house. She was never heard from again. Hochman announced 3 charges: first-degree murder, continuous sexual abuse of a child under 14 years old, and mutilation of human remains. He then outlined the 3 special circumstances attached to the murder charge, the legal mechanisms that elevate this case to potential death penalty territory. Special circumstance 1, lying in wait. Prosecutors believe the killing was premeditated.
The special circumstances being lying in wait.
That Celeste did not see it coming. That Burke had planned what he was going to do before she arrived at his home on April 23, 2023. Special circumstance 2, murder for financial gain.
Committing this crime for financial gain or murdering a witness in an investigation.
This is the most chilling element of the prosecution's theory. Hochman stated directly that Burke killed Celeste to protect his music career. She had been threatening to expose the sexual relationship. The income, the tour, the label deals, the brand partnerships, all of it was at risk. According to the prosecution, Burke made a calculation. He chose his career over her life. Special circumstance 3, murdering a witness. Celeste herself is identified as the witness, the person who could have given testimony about the sexual crimes committed against her while she was 13 years old. Each of these special circumstances, if proven at trial, makes Burke eligible for either life without the possibility of parole or the death penalty. Hochman confirmed the DA's office has not yet decided whether to formally seek the ultimate sentence. That decision will come as the case develops. Burke appeared in court that same morning. He was wearing a jail uniform at first, then was unshackled and seated next to his attorneys. He pleaded not guilty to all 3 charges to his legal team. He did not speak. LAPD Chief Jim McDonald was also present at the press conference. He spoke directly and without equivocation. He said the LAPD's Robbery Homicide Division had conducted a thorough, methodical investigation, and that the evidence assembled would speak for itself in court.
To make an arrest, and we present the case to the district attorney. They view all of the evidence and weigh it, and then be able to put together a presentation for a jury at some point. So to say anything beyond what's necessary at this point could potentially jeopardize the case, and we don't want to do that.
3 days after the press conference on Thursday, April 23, 2026, David Burke appeared in a small Los Angeles Superior Court courtroom for what was initially scheduled as a preliminary hearing. The date was not lost on anyone in that room. It was exactly 1 year to the day since Celeste Rivas Hernandez was last known to be alive. Burke was brought in wearing handcuffs. A deputy removed them when he sat. He was in a bright orange jail uniform. His left wrist was shackled to his chair. He sat next to his 2 defense attorneys, Blair Burke and Marilyn Bednarski, and watched the proceedings. Observers in the courtroom noted he was composed, not visibly distressed, not visibly emotional. He watched, he listened, he said almost nothing. The hearing itself was not a preliminary hearing in the end. It converted to a status conference, a procedural step. The real preliminary hearing was pushed to May 1st. But what was said inside that courtroom during those proceedings was explosive. Prosecutor Beth Silverman would see still. Beth Slav, the Deputy District Attorney Beth Silverman, is the lead prosecutor on this case. She is a member of the Major Crimes Division. She has handled significant criminal cases before. And on April 23rd, she stood before Judge Charlene F. Olmedo and began laying out the scope of what the prosecution has assembled. She said, "There is a voluminous amount of digital data in this case." Voluminous is an understatement. Prosecutors have assembled 40 terabytes of evidence. 40 terabytes. To put that in context, the standard laptop holds approximately 1 terabyte. This case has the equivalent of 40 laptops worth of digital data. That data comes from Burke's iPhone, from his iCloud account, which alone contains approximately 3 terabytes of stored material, from computers and tablets, from items seized and multiple search warrants executed at properties associated with him. And then Silverman said something that stopped the courtroom. She told Judge Olmedo that among the contents of Burke's iPhone and iCloud account, investigators found a significant amount of child pornography. She did not elaborate on the specific content. She noted that some of this material must be handled carefully and cannot be broadly shared, even in court proceedings due to its nature. She did not confirm whether any of the material depicts Celeste specifically, but the revelation was unambiguous. The man facing first-degree murder charges for the alleged sexual abuse and killing of a 14-year-old girl had, on his personal devices, a significant amount of illegal material involving children. Silverman also confirmed for the first time publicly that investigators had obtained a wiretap as part of their investigation conducted last year, during the period before Burke's arrest. She did not specify what the wiretap captured or who was intercepted. She then confirmed the existence of 3 separate investigative grand juries held in November 2025, December 2025, and February 2026. She was careful to clarify their purpose. She said, "These grand juries will convene to investigate, not to indict, but to investigate." Grand juries have subpoena power. They can compel testimony from witnesses who might otherwise refuse to speak. The 3 grand juries in this case heard witness testimony over a period of months, building the evidentiary foundation that prosecutors are now preparing to present in open court. Silverman then addressed the evidence transfer problem directly. Despite 5 weeks of work by LAPD investigators, only approximately 30% of the total evidence had been uploaded to a system accessible to the defense team. 70% of 40 terabytes, roughly 28 terabytes of material, had not yet been handed over. "We will be ready," Silverman told the judge, noting the unusually compressed timeline that Burke's legal team had forced by invoking his right to a preliminary hearing within 10 court days of arraignment. Defense attorney Blair is one of the most prominent defense attorneys in Los Angeles. She has represented Harvey Weinstein. She has represented Kanye West. She has represented Britney Spears. She is not a lawyer who takes cases she believes she cannot argue. At the arraignment on April 20th, she issued a statement that has become the foundational position of the defense in every subsequent proceeding. She said, "Let us be clear, the actual evidence in this case will show that David Burke did not murder Celeste Rivas Hernandez, and he was not the cause of her death. We will vigorously defend David's innocence." In court on April 23rd, Burke did not speak extensively about the substance of the case. The hearing focused on procedural matters, evidence transfer timelines, and the scheduling of the preliminary hearing. But her strategy was visible in every motion she made. The decision to invoke Burke's right to a preliminary hearing within 10 court days of arraignment is rare. Defendants almost never push for this accelerated timeline. The standard approach is to take months, sometimes a year or more, to review evidence, interview witnesses, and build a defense strategy before exposing the defense's hand in any preliminary proceeding. Burke explained his strategy in 4 words: "We want it seen." She told the court there was so much evidence gathered secretly through wiretaps, grand juries, sealed autopsy reports, sealed search warrant affidavits. The defense's position is that they want every piece of it exposed publicly and evaluated by a judge as quickly as possible. Whether that strategy reflects genuine confidence in the defense case or is a calculated move to force the prosecution to show its hand before the full investigation is complete is a question legal observers have been debating since the hearing. Defense attorney Marilyn Bednarski addressed the judge as the hearing concluded with a single sentence: "It has been an informative hearing." Judge Charlene F. Olmedo, what she said. Judge Charlene F. Olmedo presides over this case in Los Angeles Superior Court. She has been direct, efficient, and precise in every interaction so far. She set the preliminary hearing for May 1st, a 4 to 5 day proceeding during which prosecutors will present their evidence and witnesses, and the judge will evaluate whether there is probable cause to send the case to trial. She scheduled a status conference for April 29th today to confirm whether the evidence transfer had progressed sufficiently to allow the May 1st hearing to progress efficiently to allow the May 1st hearing to proceed as planned. And then she said something that became one of the most discussed moments from the April 23rd proceedings. She turned to Burke directly and told him not to miss the morning jail bus for his next court appearance. It was a procedural instruction, but in context delivered to a 21-year-old man in handcuffs, shackled to a chair, facing first-degree murder and a potential death sentence. The matter-of-factness of it landed with weight. Burke responded with the only 2 words he spoke during the entire proceeding: "Yes, ma'am." Across the arraignment, the April 23rd hearing, the autopsy release, and the DA's press conference, a detailed picture of the prosecution's evidence has begun to emerge. Here is every confirmed piece, organized and explained. Bewada Smirspert, 1 Silbapiru, 22 indeed. The Los Angeles County Medical Examiner performed Celeste's autopsy in September 2025, days after her remains were discovered. The results were ordered sealed by a judge as the investigation continued. They remained sealed until April 22, 2026, 6 months after the autopsy was completed. The report confirmed the manner of death as homicide. The cause of death was listed as multiple penetrating injuries caused by objects, specifically 2 penetrating wounds to the torso, 1 to the upper abdomen that penetrated her liver, a second to the left chest that damaged her ribs. Both wounds may represent sharp force injuries consistent with a blade or similar instrument. Additional findings included skin abrasions across the body, presumptive positive results for benzodiazepines, methamphetamine, and MDMA in initial toxicology screening. Due to the severe decomposition of her remains, the examiner could not determine the exact cause of the penetrating injuries, and no weapon has been recovered. Her arms and legs have been dismembered. Multiple blue plastic fragments were embedded in the cut surfaces of the remains. Those fragments have been submitted into evidence. The medical examiner's chief, Dr. Oyukpo, acknowledged publicly that he was grateful the autopsy findings could finally be shared, not only with the public, but with the grieving family who had been waiting without answers for months. The digital evidence, 40 terabytes, Burke's iPhone, his iCloud account, 3 terabytes alone, computers, tablets, all seized through multiple search warrants executed at properties associated with him. The total volume is 40 terabytes. As of April 23rd, only 30% had been transferred to the defense. Among the digital evidence, the Twitch live stream from January 2024 capturing Burt saying delete everything on camera, photographs placing Celeste at his Fonda Theater concert in June 2024, images from a private investigator showing her with Burke in late 2024 and early 2024 and early 2025, cell phone location data, surveillance footage from properties and locations connected to the timeline, and the child sexual abuse material described by Prosecutor Silverman as a significant amount found on Burke's iPhone and iCloud account at the time of his arrest. The wiretap prosecutors confirmed the wiretap was conducted as part of the investigation last year, during the period before Burke's arrest. What was captured on that wiretap, who was intercepted, and how it connects to the charges against Burt has not been publicly disclosed. It will become part of the preliminary hearing proceedings. The Tesla and the physical evidence. The Tesla Model Y registered to Burke at his Hempstead, Texas address, told from a street in the Hollywood Hills while Burke was on tour in Minneapolis. The 2 black bags found in the front trunk. The zippered body bag containing Celeste's numbered and decomposed remains. The blue plastic fragments embedded in cut surfaces of the body, submitted into evidence. Evidence seized from multiple search warrant executions at properties associated with Burke. A burn cage discovered at a former property connected to him, the full significance of which the prosecution has not publicly disclosed. 3 grand jury testimonies, November 2025, December 2025, February 2026. 3 separate investigative grand juries, each with subpoena power, heard witness testimony over a 4-month period. The transcripts of that testimony form part of the prosecution's evidentiary foundation. Witnesses who might have refused to speak voluntarily were compelled to testify before these panels. Court observers and defense attorneys have questioned why, with 3 grand juries in this volume of evidence, the prosecution did not seek a grand jury indictment before arresting Burke. Prosecutor Silverman confirmed the grand juries were investigative in purpose, not indictment seeking. Burke was arrested on direct charge by the DA's office instead. The family's subpoenas. In February 2026, court filings connected to subpoenas issued to Burke's parents and younger brother, all residing in Texas, confirmed publicly for the first time that Burke was the formal target of the investigation. His family members have filed legal petitions in Texas seeking to avoid testifying before the Los Angeles grand jury. The attached subpoenas from the LA County DA's office stated that prosecutors believe Burke may be involved in foul play connected to Rivas's death. Those filings were the first public confirmation of his suspect status. Before the May 1st preliminary hearing could be confirmed, 2 things happened that reveal something about how David Burke is approaching his situation. First, his defense team filed a request asking the court to allow Burke to appear at the May 1st hearing in dress pants and a button-down shirt rather than his orange jail uniform. The reasoning was presentation. The preliminary hearing would be open to the public, to media, and would involve witnesses and evidence being presented on the record. Judge Olmedo denied the clothing request. Burke will appear in his orange jail uniform. Second, Burke separately requested a haircut before the hearing. That request was approved. He will appear in the orange uniform with a fresh haircut. in front of a judge who will evaluate 40 terabytes of evidence and decide whether he goes to trial for murder. The detail is small, but it is revealing. In the middle of the most consequential legal proceeding of his life, David Burke asked for a haircut and a change of clothes, as though the visual impression he makes in that courtroom is something he can control, as though appearance is something that still matters in the way it did when he was a touring artist with a sold-out world tour and a Billboard charting single. The April 29th status conference today will determine whether May 1st can proceed. The central question is whether enough of the prosecution's 40 terabytes has been transferred to the defense to allow Blair Burke and her team to prepare effectively for a 4 to 5 day evidentiary hearing. As of April 23rd, 30% transferred, 70% outstanding. That gap is significant. If the court determines the defense has not received sufficient discovery, May 1st gets delayed. If May 1st proceeds, here is what happens. Prosecutor Beth Silverman will call witnesses. She will present physical evidence. She will introduce digital forensics. She will lay out the prosecution's theory of premeditation, lying in wait, the financial gain motive, the murder of a witness. The defense will have the opportunity to cross-examine witnesses and challenge evidence. Judge Olmedo will evaluate everything presented and determine whether there was probable cause to move this case to trial. If the judge finds probable cause and legal observers following this case consider that outcome significantly more likely than not, given the volume of evidence described, the case moves to a formal arraignment on the information in superior court. From there, the path leads to trial. Given the complexity of the charges, the special circumstances, the volume of discovery, and the potential involvement of the death penalty, that trial is likely months away, possibly longer. If the judge does not find probable cause, an outcome most analysts consider unlikely, charges could be reduced or dismissed. Burke's attorneys have maintained since day one that the evidence will show he did not murder Celeste. The preliminary hearing will be the first public test of whether that position has any foundation in the evidence the prosecution holds. The Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office has confirmed they are still evaluating whether to formally seek the death penalty in this case. That decision has not been made. It will be made as the case progresses. California has the death penalty on the books. It also has had a moratorium on executions in place since 2019. The moratorium affects whether executions are carried out, not whether death penalty sentences can be sought and imposed by a jury. The DA's decision to leave the option open and the attachment of 3 special circumstances to the murder charge signals the seriousness with which this prosecution is treating the case. Beyond the legal proceedings, the fallout for Burke's career and public presence has been total and swift. Interscope Records dropped him in 2025 before the public arrest after police began investigating him as a suspect. Sony Music Publishing terminated its relationship. His management company severed ties. The deluxe edition of Weathered was shelved permanently. The Weathered World Tour ended mid-run. Holly Humberstone, Laufey, and Kali Uchikes, 3 artists who had collaborated with Burke, quietly removed their collaborative tracks from streaming platforms without extensive public statements. Fortnite, the platform where Burke began posting gaming montages backed by his original music before any label ever knew his name, offered self-service refunds on all D4vd cosmetics beginning April 28, 2026. Epic Games has not confirmed whether the content will be fully removed from the game. The career, the partnerships, the fan base, the TikTok virality, the Billboard charting singles, the sold-out venues, all of it now exists only as the backdrop to a criminal case in which a 21-year-old man sits shackled to a courtroom chair and answers a judge's procedural questions with 2 words, "Yes, ma'am." There is a courtroom in Los Angeles where a judge is reviewing 40 terabytes of evidence. There is a cell in the LA County Jail where a 21-year-old man who once had a sold-out world tour is waiting for a bus to take him to his next hearing. There is a house in Lake Elsinore, California, where parents who built their lives in this country are waiting for justice for their daughter. Today, April 29th, a status conference will determine whether Friday's preliminary hearing can proceed, whether the prosecution is ready, whether the defense has enough of the evidence it needs, whether Judge Olmedo can begin the process of deciding whether David Burke goes to trial. If May 1st proceeds for 4 to 5 days in open court in front of cameras and reporters and the public, the full weight of the prosecution's case will be laid out for the first time. Witnesses will testify. evidence will be entered into the record: the wiretap, the digital forensics, the burn cage, the blue plastic fragments embedded in the cut surfaces of a dismembered body. All of it. And at the end of that hearing, a judge will decide whether this case goes to trial. Whether David Anthony Burke, who went viral on TikTok in 2022 with a song called Romantic Homicide, will face a jury on charges that include first-degree murder, sexual abuse of a child, mutilation of human remains, and the possibility of the death penalty. Celeste Rivas Hernandez was 14 years old. She liked Hello Kitty. She loved to sing and dance. She told her parents she loved them, and all they want is justice for their daughter. This channel will be here for every hearing, every ruling, every piece of evidence that becomes public record. Subscribe and hit the notification bell, because this case is not over. It is only just beginning.